Okay, so Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness takes us on a 2-hour trip through alternate universes in the pursuit of getting America Chavez the f*** away from Wanda. Hide your wife, hide your kids, because someone is gonna have to raise them, and I have to say that I absolutely love the film. I know it's very divisive, with people saying the plot is messy, and that there's some disappointing aspects in terms of things like the Illuminati, but I had a complete blast. So I thought I'd revisit the film and discuss some of the big questions people have about the character turns, the plot holes, and just general issues that I see popping up. This video is going to include things like why Wanda's kids are the same even though Vision isn't there, where the deadbeat bot is, why Reed is the dumbest smartest man on earth, why Gamora didn't cause an incursion, and basically as many questions as I can fit into one video before Wanda shows up to take my twins away. Yay! Now it's full spoilers ahead, so if you haven't seen the movie and that intro didn't ruin it for you, then please hit the green light and stop the video. If you enjoy our breakdown, we'd love you in every universe if you decide to like and subscribe, and with that out of the way, thank you for clicking this. Now let's get into Doctor Strange 2. Okay, so the first big thing I want to discuss is why Wanda's kids are the same in the 8/8 universe when she created them using magic in WandaVision. Surely they wouldn't be exactly the same because the ones in the alternate reality were conceived the old-fashioned way, whereas the ones in the Hex just showed up out of nowhere, like those f***s that post full cam spoiler clips on YouTube 2 days before the film releases. I know who you are. Now it is pretty confusing unless we take it that the Westview ones weren't who came first. Billy and Tommy are roughly about 10 years old, I think, and therefore they would have had to have been alive for that length of time if they're real. WandaVision only happened recently in terms of the MCU timeline, and therefore they would have been created after the real ones in the alternate universe. If we look at the 8/8 in general, they're far more advanced than the 616 timeline, and that's because the snap never happened, and therefore they had 5 years of developing things. This is why we see a Reed Richards who's at the height of his powers when we haven't even had him show up in the 616 yet. They might even be more than 5 years ahead, but either way you slice it up, there's definitely a major time difference in terms of how advanced they are. Now how Wanda managed to make two kids that are exactly the same is explained in the movie through them discussing dreams. We learn that when one dreams that the person doing so is actually seeing their alternate self in another reality. Therefore in 616, Wanda would have likely dreamed about her alternate self, met her kids that way, and then subconsciously brought them to life. We learn that in every other reality that Wanda is with her kids, whereas in the 616 she isn't, so therefore she would have definitely encountered them at several points. And that kind of segues me into the next point, which is, who is the daddy? Whilst it would be easy to say Vision, unfortunately I don't think that he exists in the 8/8 universe, and even if he does, the events of WandaVision definitely didn't happen. Now, we never meet Tony Stark in this reality, and therefore it's unlikely that he actually exists there. However, we do meet Ultron bots, which is why everyone on the internet thought that Tom Cruise could show up as Superior Iron Man. However, I don't think that these were created by the character, and instead I believe that Reed Richards was the person behind them. Dubbed the smartest man on Earth, if he really is that, then he probably created them without the flaws, and the main Ultron wouldn't carry aspects of the personality that Tony has. So Reed likely figured it all out, and because Ultron works, he never tried to make Vision like what we saw in Age of Ultron. However, even if the events of Age of Ultron did somewhat happen and we got a version of Vision, his time with Wanda would have been a lot different. In the movie, we learn that the Illuminati killed Thanos on Titan, and with this happening, it means that he never would have gone to Earth and ripped the Mind Stone out of Vision's head. Because this didn't happen, Wanda would have never grieved him, created the Hex, and then become the Scarlet Witch. So Ultron, working as intended, changes the course of the MCU, and instead I think that Billy and Tommy's dad are probably just some random guy, which is a nice message I suppose. Now, we're going even further into a segue from this to talk about why the Illuminati don't care about Wanda, even though Strange tries to desperately warn them that she's coming to matrix their mouths. That's because, as they say, in their reality, Strange is the biggest threat. After dreamwalking too much, Supreme Strange caused an incursion that killed trillions of people because it wiped out an entire reality. Thus Wanda isn't as big of a threat, even though we as the viewers know how dangerous she is. This also kinda ties into why they don't really care, and at one point Captain Marvel even says that they can handle Strange's little witch. Now because all of the prior events like Age of Ultron, Civil War, Infinity War, Endgame, and WandaVision never happened, their Wanda is pretty depowered. She'd probably be about Age of Ultron level, which is why they think they're fine just sending lots of Ultron bots after her, as she was pretty scared of them in that film. In the comics, the arrogance and hubris of the Illuminati always led to their downfall, and they just don't see Wanda as a threat to them because they're used to dealing with their Wanda. They've probably also looked into other realities and have seen that in 99.9% of them that she's just a full-time yummy mummy who spends most of her days making her kids ice creams. So just like, meh, we can handle her. This arrogance and underestimation of her is why they wade into the battle completely unprepared, and why Reed even tells her about Black Bolt's power. Because they're pretty idiotic, a lot of fans have said that it's a wasted opportunity to introduce them like this, and I do kinda agree with them on some level. However, the whole point of them is to make us think that Wanda has finally met her match, but she completely overpowers them. They are supposed to represent the best team on one of the best Earths, and the fact that Wanda turns them into pasta just elevates the threat. Now I know a lot of chatter online is about how we waited years for Professor X, and also John Krasinski to show up as Mr. Fantastic. To throw them away seems pretty stupid, but I believe in my heart of hearts that all these characters will be back in some form or another. Disney of course acquired 20th Century Fox, so they'll likely be doing an X-Men movie soon. We know that a Fantastic Four is right around the corner, Captain Carter is confirmed to show up in Season 2 of What If, Maria will probably be back in some form or another in the Marvels, and Black Bolt, yeah sure, get him back in another Earth. So the majority of these characters will return in upcoming projects either centered around them, or with them in the background for like 2 seconds. Now, was the Illuminati's inclusion disappointing? It kinda depends if you're more bothered about the cameos than what they're supposed to represent, but let me know below exactly what you think. Now with them comes a lot of exposition about Incursions, which massively pulls from the comics. In the source material, what happens is that two worlds start to move towards each other on a collision course that will destroy both of them. Those on the other worlds have to either accept their fate or fight to the death until they destroy the other reality, which massively ties into the Secret Wars event. This will likely be the big arc that's coming around the corner, and we discover that if one enters another universe through Dreamwalking, that it will start to create a footprint there. This will eventually cause an incursion, and that will destroy the reality. Now this is very much why Strange and Christine can't be together, even though the pair both have feelings for one another. If they were to live in a reality together, it would eventually pull either the 616 or 838 towards it, which would lead to a path of destruction. So they say goodbye at the end, with Strange saying he loves her in every universe. I'm not crying, you're crying. Now the reason that America Chavez and Clea can do this is because neither use the Darkhold to dreamwalk. As we see, Clea cuts open reality into the dark dimension, so she can enter and exit whatever universe she wants to this way. We also discover that America is the only version of herself that exists in the entire multiverse. Her just being her means there's no one for her to puppet in another reality, and therefore no incursions will be caused. There's actually another similarity with the Darkhold, the Book of Ashanti, and America that we learn about in the film. We discover that the Darkhold was created for the Scarlet Witch, and even see statues of Tommy and Billy at the fortress later on. Chthon created this in every universe to bring about the prophesied Scarlet Witch, and that is why there's a Wanda and Darkhold in every reality. However, there's only one Book of Ashanti because there's only one America. Both very much represent their own books, and when we see the pages of Ashanti open, there's even a star there like what America has. Now the reason Gamora doesn't cause an incursion in Endgame is because technically she's from the same reality as the one that died. The events of Loki hadn't really transpired at that point, and therefore every time there was a branch timeline created, the TVA shut it down. They also said in Loki that Endgame was meant to happen the way it did, so they wouldn't ever wipe out Gamora. She comes from 2014 in that reality, and therefore when her past self travels to the future, it doesn't create an incursion because she's still from the 616. This is the same with Steve Rogers, who used the quantum tunnel to travel back through time in the 616 reality, and it was from here that he created a branch timeline with Peggy Carter. The way light is used in the film also reflects other worlds, which is why America's has different colours in it because it's on a different colour spectrum, whereas the 616 looks the same throughout. Now a major criticism I've seen about the film is that it undoes Wanda's arc in WandaVision. Personally, I don't really see that as being true, and in the post-credits scene, we left her on her own studying the Darkhold looking for her kids. We pick up with her studying the Darkhold, looking for her kids, and though it's getting compared to Daenerys from Game of Thrones, I think there's actually way more setup here. Wanda is also corrupted by the Darkhold, which is why she's not really that reasonable anymore, and if you can accept that Sinister Strange was turned evil by it, then you can accept that Wanda was too. I'm telling you, you'll accept it. Remember, this is a book that prophesies the rise of the Scarlet Witch, and thus it was written purely with the intent of corrupting her in order to turn her into someone that would rule the entire multiverse. so there is precedent there, even if they do rush some of the character development. Now her dying at the end could also explain how we're getting the Disney Plus series Agatha House of Harkness. At the end of WandaVision, Wanda trapped Agatha in an illusion, but with her apparent death at the film's close, we could see Agatha breaking out of this, which would lead into her solo series. The film very much brings a close to Wanda's arc, but we could definitely see her back at some point. Now it also does this with Strange, who very much grows as a character throughout the film. Early on, Christine says that he always has to be the one holding the knife, which is echoed by her 838 counterpart. However, come the end of the film, he finally decides to hand things over to America rather than taking her power. He no longer has to be the one holding the knife, and instead can now trust others. Him fixing the watch in the final few scenes also represents a lot of things for the character. The first film ended with Strange staring at the watch in the Sanctorum, accepting that he was broken but still powering through it. However, this film ends with him repairing it, showing how he's very much overcame the internal issues he had over losing Christine. We're also introduced to Clea in the post-credit scene, who actually ends up becoming his wife in the comics. I guess as one portal closes, another one opens, and it's a great way to take the character. Now lastly, does Wanda get back on the lunchbox? Nope, and that's the video. We didn't cover the post-credit scene in this one, as we already have a big breakdown on it, and that'll be linked on screen right now if you want to go and check it out. We've also covered the Illuminati a bit more in depth, so head over there right after this if you want to learn about their past and powers in the comics. With that out of the way, thanks for sitting through the video. I've been Paul, let's see you in the next one. Take care, peace.